All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Life in Sound podcast. I'm your host, Kid Capone. Today, I have a very special guest, Grammy award-winning sample maker and producer, Cameone. He's done work with Kanye West, Rick Ross, and a few others, and has a big 2022 ahead, and I'm really excited to have him on the show. Cameone, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. And yourself?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Just getting the morning started on a great note.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Same here.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, man. I'm happy to have you on. Like, it's going to be an exciting interview.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I'll start with just, some of the easier questions, and then we'll move into some of the more technical stuff later on in the interview. But where did you get your name and brand name as an artist?
So the producer name Cameone came from my background in graffiti. Before I started doing music production, I was originally more of like a visual artist. So doing graffiti, like illustration work, and with the graffiti, it's very common to come up with like your tag name. So I came up with Cameone because the letter combination was just I liked the way it looked when it was drawn out, and it was cool to tag with like a marker. And I feel like the letters flowed. Yeah, so it just kind of stuck. So through the music or through the design and the graffiti work, it kind of like moved over to my music work.
That's amazing. And how much has the graphic design played a part into like your musical compositions?
I feel like especially like now there's the connection with my sample library and the music side of things connecting with my design because I do a lot of cover art for a lot of guys that have their own libraries. Since I'm doing work with like the Crate League, with Mario Luciano, doing their cover art, I feel like it all kind of blends together and all kind of fuses there.
Definitely. And those are some heavy hitters in the sample maker world.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I love all the cover art you did for Mario and Audio Anthem, but I love I loved the Japanese or the Japan drum breaks cover art. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah. So that whole partnership that I got going with Mario is incredible because he has such an incredible eye for like detail and finding really interesting concepts. And for me, my role is to help just kind of like bring those ideas to life,
Of course.
and just to make it like a reality. But a lot of like the heavy lifting, I'll say, like coming up with the ideas, it's all Mario.
That's amazing. I mean, I feel like both of you are very like detail oriented, and it really
For sure.
shows in your work, whether it's the samples or the artwork. Like you can tell you are people who really care about what you're doing.
100%. Yep.
So what is the music scene kind of like in Milwaukee where you're at?
The music scene's great, man. I mean, there's like a little bit of everything. There's artists out here that are MCs, singers, great jazz scene. But I think for me, I've always been the one to kind of lock myself into my own space in my own room, and I usually don't go to like the shows. I don't participate as much as I should in the Milwaukee scene because I'm very introverted. I kind of pick and choose when I do go out and be social, but I spend most of my time in the studio. But I am aware of like the incredible talent that's in this city.
That's amazing. Have you always grown up in Milwaukee?
Yeah, born and raised.
That's wild, man. So
Yeah.
how was your relationship with music changed from when you were a child versus now?
I think growing up, it was more about it being like the soundtrack to me being a kid. Whether it be the music that my mom was playing when she was cleaning, the music that my dad was playing in the car, the music I was being exposed to by my older brother. Him being about 5 years older than me, he was listening to the stuff that I would eventually be in love with. So yeah, just they kind of like catered my ear a little bit to the stuff that I would eventually love.
Definitely. What are some like heavy influences in your sample making work or music that really inspires you to create?
Heavily inspired by, well, because I'm Mexican American, so a lot of Spanish music. In like 70s and 80s, there were these bands that weren't necessarily playing like the typical. When you think of Mexican music, you think of like regional Mexican music, like even like maybe mariachi
Or bachata.
or bachata. Yeah, yeah, kind of like that typical stuff. But there was bands out there that were playing like love ballads of that time period, and a lot of that stuff was like grimy, like the intros. There was some stuff that really translated well to like being used as samples.
Definitely.
It didn't really click at that age, but eventually I would come to learn like, yeah, all that stuff that I grew up listening to is all the perfect material to turn into beats.
Yeah, it was like planting the seeds.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And then what was the music that your older brother was getting you into or showing you when you were young?
Uh, Around that time, he was listening to a lot of like Mexican rap, like Psycho Realm. I don't know if you're familiar with them. So yeah, like Psycho Realm, Cypress Hill, and then more of like rap of that period too, of like Biggie, Tupac, all of the main guys, right? He had like tapes, yeah, all the heavy hitters. He had like the stack of tapes that I would go through, just being curious, not knowing what I was looking for, but just kind of exposing myself and sneaking into his room and seeing what he had in that shoebox.
Yeah, man. And it was probably exciting because it's almost like, you never know what you're going to pull up or you see something new and you're like, man, what is this?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, like I kind of like now that I'm thinking of it, like I really do accredit my brother to a lot of like the stuff that I listen to now. And it's crazy because again, going back to Psycho Realm, one of like the lead guys, his name is Sig Jackin. And I've been able to connect with him through Instagram. And the day that it happened, I hit up my brother and I said, "Hey, I'm literally talking to Sig Jackin from like Psycho Realm." And he's all like, "Whoa, that's fucking crazy. That's crazy."
Dude,
Like it just blew his mind.
full circle.
I'm telling you, like it's so insane.
I mean, that's the beauty of like music and then really, following your joy because that was something that brought you joy and like gave
Yeah.
value to your life. And you've been able to integrate that and turn that into a lifestyle and a career. And, that's the goal of life is just living off your joy, not necessarily always trying to make millions, which is nice. But I feel like
Yeah.
feel like-
pursuing happiness is more important.
100%. I always try to tell myself like anytime I'm feeling like down, especially when it comes to like my career, I kind of remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's not necessarily that I want to be like super known or like millions of dollars. My main goal from the beginning was just as long as I can do what I love every single day and have enough to pay my bills, I'm good.
Definitely, man.
I just want to make music, do art, and have enough to be comfortable. And the rest is just the like
Yes.
extra cherry on top. Like it's not necessary. I would love it. It'd be great, but just enough to be comfortable and happy.
That's beautiful, man. I'm definitely in agreement with that. That's the best way to go about your journey.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what are some of maybe the stranger places you feel like you've gathered influence from, whether that's music itself or even outside of music?
Well, that's a good question. Stranger places. I think I would normally find inspiration going through like YouTube, like blog posts, downloading stuff. But then as I kind of matured in this, I found that doing non-music related things affected my inspiration when I came back to the studio. It's almost like the biggest source of inspiration is real life, you
Of
know,
course.
when you're not creating, when you're not in that creative space, when you're out for a walk, you're hanging out with your lady, you're with family, you're out grabbing a beer, just doing normal shit. I feel like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because they hold the key to these amazing melodies or if it's because it allows your brain to kind of like recharge a little bit, and reset. And you're not in that creative mode. You're more of like in a relaxed state. You're allowing your brain to kind of like soak in other things other than musical notes and
I
forcing yourself to
agree.
create.
Yeah, you gotta find the balance. I'm even reading a book right now talking about like focused work, and they're saying how when you're creating, it's important to make sure, even if it's every 30 minutes or even once an hour, but take an ear break or take a short break, because that actually does let your brain recharge, not be so, your brain gets exhausted. It's like lifting weights. You can't lift weights without taking a rest.
Yeah, I have this thing called the bass break. It's something that I made up completely on my own. Like, it makes no sense, but it makes sense to me. Where if I'm working on a sample and it comes time to add the bass, I always take a break, because anytime I try to add the bass in that same like session or that same first whatever hours I was working on that sample, it never turns out. But when I take a break and I step away and I open up the session maybe like 2 hours later, the first take of that bass that I record is always the one that I end up keeping.
That's amazing. That's a great tip for people. I like think that's very valuable, man.
Take a break.
No, that's some secret sauce, bro. That's a
Yeah,
smart
man.
thing, and that just goes to show you, you know, you can't go 100% focus all the time because it may not be optimal.
Right. That's true. That's true.
How did you get connected with some of the artists and sample makers you're working with now? Like, I loved the collaborative pack with Motif alumni. That was like,
Yeah.
that was like, it felt like a supreme collaboration of the sample maker world, you know?
Yeah, man. The collaboration with Motif was, I think, a result of just connecting with those guys. Connecting with his manager, Kaz, the co-founder of the Record Collective, too. Just talking with them, you know, being cool with them, and, you know, sharing I feel like also genuinely supporting what they're doing. I feel like that really, and them supporting me, it kind of like led to opening up the doors and us becoming really good friends. And then the idea of a collaborative pact was just a no-brainer for us. That was like, yeah, of course we were gonna fucking do that. So yeah, me and Motif started sending ideas back and forth. And the first volume took a little bit of time to put together, only because, again, I'm kind of balancing my design work with my music work. And the way Motif works, that man is a machine. That man can crack out samples like no other.
I've seen it, man. He's wild.
Yeah.
He went on Instagram Live one time, and I had to screen record it because he was just working so quickly. It was wild. I was like, man, he just plugs in, pulls up the guitar, pulls up guitar rig, like, boom, lays the layer down, picks up the bass guitar, puts it in, boom, lays the layer down. I'm like, this guy's a machine, bro.
This by no means is easy work, but that man makes it look so easy.
Agreed.
So it's crazy.
I feel like when you watch, I love watching somebody like that work, because you can really see the balance of like knowledge and freedom, if that makes sense, like creative freedom,
Right,
not
right.
overthinking.
Exactly. I feel like there's a certain energy that you catch with a really good idea. And the more you think about it and you start going through your plugins, if you have like a shitload of plugins and you're scrolling through trying to find the perfect sound, you'll lose that energy. But I say just follow your first instinct. If it feels like you need to add this, just go for that. Like the first thing that comes to mind, just do it, you know?
Yeah, because there's a reason you're having that feeling.
Exactly. Yep.
What are your daily habits sort of like? You know, when do you typically wake up? When do you go to bed? How does your day kind of flow?
I pretty much live the same day every day. I love waking up early. So for those that don't know, my girlfriend owns a bagel shop here in Milwaukee. And to make bagels, you have to wake up super early. So she's up by like most days around 4 a.m. So instead of having different sleep schedules, I've just perfectly aligned my sleep schedule with hers. So when she wakes up, then that's when I wake up. So I'm usually up and at it by like 4:30 or 5 a.m.
That's awesome. And like, how do you like start the day? Do you just wake up and immediately go to making samples, or do you kind of like?
No, I have like my morning ritual of like what I eat for breakfast. I make myself a coffee. I tend to like swim around through YouTube to listen to music. Sometimes days don't even contain any type of music creation. It's more about creating playlists. So I'll make playlists for certain themes that I'm working on. So if I'm working on a pack that's more of like synth library based, which is the majority of my shit, I'll just make a playlist of that certain sound just to get inspiration and to get ideas. Other days will be about emails, and I just kind of get lost in emails and replying to people or doing maintenance on my website, maintenance on the Hijo de Ramon store. So, like every morning's different, but pretty much has the same structure. Wake up early, you make breakfast, you get your coffee, and you just hit the lab.
Definitely, man. And then when you're kind of working on everything, do you feel like it's very important to set goals for like the year or for the month or whatever it is you're doing?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really big on lists. I love writing stuff down. So I typically will only use daily tasks. I'll make like daily tasks for design work because there's like tight deadlines and stuff. But for the sample stuff, I'll tell myself I have to release volume, let's see, I'm on volume 19 right now. I have to release volume 19 by so and so date. I have to have the compositions done by this time. Stems should be exported by this. Marketing assets should be created by this, just to kind of give myself a little bit of a timeline to follow.
Yeah, I mean, that's really smart. I heard a quote the other day that was, it said, a goal without a deadline is just a dream.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. I feel like the deadline kind of anchors it into like reality. It's like, no, like it's due by Wednesday, bro. Like you need to get this shit done.
And I feel like, there's something to be said about like working under pressure, but like a healthy pressure like that. Because it's not a life-breaking deadline, but it is something that keeps you on track.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a life breaking deadline, but it could be a life changing thing if you meet that deadline, where if you release that pack on that date that you said, the person, as soon as you posted it, the person that could pick it up could be scrolling through Instagram that day and see it, buy it, and it could be this effect of leading to the biggest placement of your life.
Yeah, and having that routine and having those deadlines and knocking things out and having like a time frame for everything is just so important because there's opportunities at every corner. You just got to be able to recognize them.
That's true. That's very true.
Uh, when you're creating, do you ever, smoke or drink alcohol or drink coffee or anything when you go into the studio to create?
So I don't smoke at all. I don't smoke anything. I do enjoy like a beer or like a drink here and there, but it's like usually with my lady, if we like craving something, we'll be out. Sometimes I'll have like a beer here at the house. Not often, but my biggest like addiction right now is like coffee, dude. Coffee is my crack. I gotta have it.
I literally, man, 6 days ago, just stopped. I stopped alcohol.
Really?
I stopped alcohol. I stopped weed. I stopped caffeine because I felt like, truthfully, in my own experience, I don't know if it's like this for everybody, but from my own experience, I felt like the coffee was making me over analytical. I like sound almost bothered me if it wasn't perfect off rip, and it was making it hard to create. And so
Oh,
I felt like I had to pull back a little bit, and it like neutralized my mood way more. Like I feel I'm way more understanding and baseline now. But that's just my own journey. For some people,
yeah,
they
yeah.
love it. Like I know Kabali, when I interviewed him, he wakes up, goes gets his iced coffee, goes to the studio, creates, chills once he gets a sample done, gets another iced coffee, and then gets back to work.
Yeah, me and him have a similar flow then. I definitely can say that I rely on coffee to kind of like trigger that mindset of like, all right, let's get it. Like I got this caffeine flowing through my blood right now. Like my veins it's all caffeine. I need to use it before it fades away.
Of course,
Um,
man.
I definitely played with the idea of like, what if I stop drinking coffee, replace it with tea or legit just water? But for the time being, I'm definitely on this coffee run. But who knows? Maybe in the
Yeah,
future,
man.
I'll take a note out of your book and try this no caffeine thing.
I just switched to literally just hot water and honey and lemon, and that's been like it's like a placebo for me. I could still drink the hot beverage and feel like I can get the
Yeah,
energy.
you're right, right. Because again, it might be all like a mental thing too. Because there's been times where I'll drink a coffee and I'll still yawn. Like I'll still feel tired. Like it makes no sense.
No.
I don't know. It's weird. And we can go.
No.
I feel like that's a conversation for another podcast about like caffeine in the brain or something.
Yeah, I mean, like my own journey, I've just noticed like whenever I feel like I'm struggling with something, instead of always feeling like I need to add something into my life, taking away things actually ends up being the thing that makes everything okay.
Yeah.
Because, like humans, like when we're born into the world, it's like when we're little kids, we have all this energy, we have all this creativity, and we're not smoking weed, we're not drinking alcohol, we're not drinking coffee. Like it's natural. And so I feel like we don't lose that. It just ends up getting buried with other stuff.
Right. Right. That's true. I feel like I I started drinking coffee because I was around other people that were doing it and they were doing cool shit. You
Yep.
know? So my brain automatically associated doing cool shit with having to drink coffee. It was right around the time where I picked up an internship at this design studio at a mall. They were upstairs from a mall. And when I started working there, everyone had their coffee run in the morning. They'd go in a group, like it'd be a herd of employees just running to get coffee. They'd be talking, networking, whatever, and then they go back to their desk and do all this cool shit. And back then, I was drinking like soda, water, and I said, you know what? Let me try this coffee, and then I just was hooked. Literally ever since then.
Yeah, I mean, I always grew up with my mom drinking coffee, and for me, I like started drinking coffee when I was like 15 in high school, and
Yeah,
so I started early, but it's come full circle now to like phasing it out of my life, and
where you don't need it.
yeah, but believe me, I want it. Like I love the taste of coffee. But yeah, typically for you, when you're working on a sound, and inspiration first strikes, about how long before you have a completed product?
So it really depends. Lately I've been finding that I'll come up with my best ideas when I'm just playing with just the piano. So then I'm able to find the progression and then replace either that sound with something else or keep the piano sound and just build on top of that. I just find it easy as like it's almost like a sketchbook, you know?
Smart.
Just having the piano, it's a clean sound. You're able to pretty much take what you do here and apply it to your synthesizers, your plugins, and whatever you want to do next. This is where I sketch. So and that it varies. Sometimes it'll be a back-to-back motion where piano's done, bass, synth, whatever. It just keeps building. An hour later, I got something completed. Or it's like I'm stuck on something for an hour, and then it takes another hour to figure out where I want to go next, take a break, come back the next day, and then maybe it starts flowing then. So it really depends. Because I'm really particular with where I take my samples. I always try to push myself. I'll play something and it sounds like something I've heard before, and I'll be like, I don't want to go that route. So I try to go somewhere else. So it forces me to take a little bit longer to come up with a finished product, and like in most cases.
I'm definitely similar to that. I know when I'm working on something, I like one of my main thoughts is like I hate doing things that have been done before, because to me that's not pushing music forward, or that's not challenging myself. I'm trying to bring something new to the table, because if somebody wants a certain sound, they're going to go to the source. They're not going to go to a replica of it.
Exactly. That's why that's very common in the sample pack world, where there's formulas that work. There's type of samples that are, no matter who makes it, it's gonna sound good. It's maybe like the skill comes in to be able to pull off that sound, but at the end of the day, it just sounds like something we've heard before. And I feel like a lot of samples too, especially when there's like a certain style of sample where it's intentionally supposed to sound like an old record, right? And something that we've heard before. And the reason why we're going the sample pack route is because we don't want to have to deal with the sample clearances. Then it makes sense.
Yep.
Or at least like the crazy sample clearances where it's almost impossible to clear. But yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on the sample composer and like their style, and what they are trying to achieve with their sound.
I agree 100%. What are some ways that you feel like your sound differentiates from others? Like kind of the Cameone signature sound.
I think everyone knows me for like the synthesizer heavy type sounds. I really don't know what people hear, like, and how they can like know that it's me. I can kind of like give you maybe a rough guess. Maybe it's because of the fact that I use like a ton of synths, but now everyone uses a ton of synths too. So it's kind of hard. I don't know if I kind of get lost in that category a little bit now. But I'd be interested to know what a listener looks for or what they would answer to be like, yeah, that's Came One sample.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, when I hear it's definitely like the synths and it's even like your melody choice. I feel like you have it's hard to describe, but it's like I can hear your like soul, like your character in your melodies.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
It's like the same way, you listen to a certain guitar player, like when Jimi Hendrix is playing guitar, or you hear a certain keyboard player and you're like, oh, that's Herbie Hancock playing keys. I could tell.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So you're definitely doing something right.
Right, right. I feel like when I create too, I really don't do it to be like, okay, I need to sound like me. I just kind of like I kind of create whatever I'm feeling in that moment, and if it leads to me being able to sound like myself genuinely, and that's what people are getting, great. That's dope.
Definitely. So, how much of your work in the past influences your work now that you're doing?
So my work in the past, I feel like it helped me kind of build a path of based off of my mistakes and things that didn't work. One of the biggest lessons, and I literally just talked about this with someone. The biggest issue that I had coming up as a producer is hoarding plugins and hoarding so many options when it comes to creating that as time went by, especially now, I'm actually at the point where I want to cut back the amount of like things that I use to create because I don't use all of it. It's just taking up space. But I think it does something to me mentally when I'm scrolling through that list of plugins, where it's like, fuck, it takes up a lot of time, and it prevents you from making that decision. And the same thing with like keyboards. I have a lot of keyboards, but now I'm to the point where it's like, what do I really use? What needs to be taking up space in my studio? Is it just for the post that I have all these, or am I really using these? I really had to ask myself that.
No, I mean that's an important thing to acknowledge. And as far as like, having an abundant amount of plugins and things like that, I think the important thing is to know specifically like what plugin you want to use for a certain effect or a certain sound. Like,
Right.
I know a lot of people just use the native plugins to their DAW instead of using a lot of external stuff just because it's just right there. They don't have to think about it.
It's convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you are going to have a bunch of plugins, at least try to know what they do. Like for me, when I got the Waves bundle, there's a little question mark that you can click in each little plugin window, and it opens up the user manual, and it will tell you what that plugin does, every knob, every setting, and using that kind of to know your intention later. It's like when you're cooking, you want to know what spice you need in that moment.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I feel like I'm at this point where it's like I'm ready for a new computer, and it's like I was always afraid to upgrade my system because I thought about like, damn, I gotta reinstall everything. But now it's almost kind of refreshing because I want to look at it from a different perspective, where it's like I'm gonna upgrade my system, and I'm starting from scratch. I'm only gonna install what I know I'm gonna use.
Yes. It's very valuable.
Yeah, it really is.
Uh, let's see. What are the times you find yourself having the most fun in the studio?
Listening back to what I made, a sample, when it's like damn near done, and you're like listening back, you're like, shit, like this hits. Like I start playing with the pitch, I'll bounce it, and then I'll make a beat out of it. It's like, damn, this is done. This is crazy. That's when I feel like I really feel myself. I'm like excited. I'm happy because it's like the time that I spent to get to this point, it was worth it.
Of course. I'm sure it's, similar when you're creating, a graphic or an art. It's like, in the moment, you're putting in the work, you're doing the technical, deep work. But then once you can finally get it done and you step back, you have an appreciation for the work and you're like, wow, it was all worth it.
Yep, absolutely.
How did you know when you were ready to release your first sample pack?
I think I knew I was ready when I had 10 samples that I felt that were worthy of being sold. At that time, I was under just Cameone Music Library. This was before my HDR thing. I had Cameone Music Library. I had 10 samples that were originally beats that I just removed the drums. And I made sure that none of them were using actual samples. Like back then, I wasn't really doing much of my own playing, but I had a few that were original melodies, and those are the ones that I eventually turned into my sample pack.
Nice.
Yeah, I was listening back, like, okay, cool, I'm ready. I made the artwork. I reached out to the drum broker. He gave me an opportunity to sell on his site, and that was pretty much the start of me selling packs.
And then how did you maintain that kind of momentum once you got your first pack on the drum broker?
When he told me that I wasn't selling. Yeah, when he told me that my packs weren't selling, and he eventually kicked me off.
Ah.
Yeah, so he took me off his site because I wasn't moving any units, and that was kind of like a blow to my ego a little bit, because it's like, fuck, man, like I failed, I felt like I failed a little bit. But instead of taking it as like, I never want to do this again, it kind of motivated me to get better.
I love that.
Yeah, all that told me was like, I'm not playing good enough. I need to play better. So that's when I really doubled down on teaching myself chords, melodies, how to play stuff, inversions, all that shit, just teaching myself how to compose and how to mix and how to make things sound like a sample. And that's when HDR was born, because that's when I reintroduced myself as a sample composer and reached back out and I said, I got a brand new sample pack, all new branding, all new sound. Let's try this again. And sure enough, it just took off.
That's great.
Yeah.
When you were kind of rebranding and reintroducing yourself, what were the things, like how did you learn to, I guess, put together the samples, as in, piano voicing, where the bass was, like where the top line was? Is it more like a feeling you can kind of feel?
Yeah, I mean, again, I was kind of like basing my samples off of stuff that really inspired me and stuff that I was looking for when I was, looking for records. I would just tap into the stuff that I was looking for, and I would create in that world. So if I was looking for something very melodic, kind of like smooth, okay, I need Rhodes. So let me pull up a Rhodes. And usually there's a string, so let me pull in some strings. Or there's like a really smooth buttery lead. Let me find a smooth buttery lead and play something like hypnotic that kind of like can sound good repeated. Or something needed to sound epic, like I need bigger strings or I need a synth pad. I think it's just based off of the inspiration and the idea. That's where you make your decisions.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Were you ever the type to like buy a sample pack and then like solo the stems and listen to the stems to kind of figure out how to put something together? Or were you more so just using an active listening when you were listening to the music you liked?
I still actively like listen to the demo reels on the Drum Broker. Anytime someone drops something, I love listening to that stuff because it's literally a snapshot of what the current sound is, of what guys are working on. So I'm always gonna listen to Motif's work, anything Rucker Collective, because they drop amazing packs, amazing source of inspiration there. Anything that Mario drops, I'm gonna listen to. Like just like all the main guys, right? Like they are the tastemakers of this shit. So it's like, I want to be up to date. I want to know what these guys are up to, because it's just going to help me point me in the right direction of what not to create and what to create, because I don't want to make anything that sounds like them, but I want to be able to make something that could stand with them,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very valuable. And I feel like for somebody like me, like I've only dropped one sample pack, but I'm actively trying to get better, get my next one. I want my next one to be like really, really special, not just a pack I put out that took some time and like these are my 10, samples, but I want them to be 10 or 12 of my best samples I can make at this point in my life. And
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the guys right now, it almost feels like a when you're in high school and there's like a varsity team for sports and then there's like a JV team or something. It's like I look at the guys like you, like Mario, like Raphael from the Crate League, and
Crate League, yep.
it's like you guys are all already on the drum broker. You're putting out packs, you're dropping heat, and then I see people like Kabali and Elkin and the Chosen Ones and people who are just starting to put out their packs, and then the people who aren't even fully out there yet, or maybe they have their own independent library like me, and it's kind of beautiful because you're really seeing this point where all these different musical influences are coming in from every direction, but in the end of the day, it makes this like beautiful melting pot of sound. Like everybody stands out in their own way.
That's true. It's like, and it's crazy to think about like this new wave of composers. Like in my eyes, they are probably the best sounding shit because it's so refreshing. It's like a fusion of the stuff that we were making with the stuff that we're not even aware of because they're so young and so new, is that they got like this extra sauce that they're adding to their sound. And it's just like, yo, what is this? It's like nostalgic, but it feels very new. So all the younger cats coming up, it's really incredible to see all these new composers just coming out and releasing these incredible packs.
Yeah, I feel like they're fearless and they're hungry. Like a lot of the people are just they're willing to experiment. They're willing to, they're willing to fail to like get to a new level or make a new sound.
I just got a phone call. Sorry about that, man.
You're good, brother.
All right, we're back. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. Don't even worry. How do you stay inspired musically and creatively?
I think implementing those breaks. I've had this habit of pushing myself to create, pushing myself to, or forcing myself to make something every time I sat down, and that was very counterproductive because sometimes I don't really feel like working on music. So being able to recognize that and see like if I'm in a creative rut, it's not that I suck. It's more about like I just don't feel like working on music. I need to do something else. Also too, like just being active to listening to new music, to older music, revisiting stuff that inspired you. And lately I've been fiddling around with my synthesizers a lot, not necessarily to create, but just to see what the sounds that they can produce. Because after a while, you'll eventually make the same patch again and again because you're familiar with it. You'll go through the same presets, but going through and forcing yourself to be more creative with those knobs can lead to a new idea. What else? I think that's pretty much like the main ones that I use to get inspired.
Definitely.
Yeah.
How did you get your first placement and kind of like the placements you're getting now?
The first major placement that I can think of that really sparked this whole journey was the Love on Ice sample for Key and Kenny Beats. They released 666. I forgot. I think that was like 2016 or 15. I don't remember what year it dropped, but I had made a sample pack with MSX Audio, and I did a 3-volume series of 80s type samples, and they were just loops. So like 2-bar loops, 4-bar loops. And we did 3 volumes. They were released, and then time went by, and I found out that Kenny had used one of the samples for that song. And I had no idea how that happened. Like, wait a minute, did we send it to him? Like, how does he, whatever? But it turns out, like, somehow he got the sample. And that just kind of blew my mind because, like, oh, shit, like, something that I made is being used on a project. And then the song ended up being re-released with Black on it. Or like with like 6 Black, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. So I can compose in my studio and work with these big artists. And then shortly after that, I got something placed with Quentin Miller, and they just kept coming.
That's amazing.
So it just motivated me to just connect with more producers, release more packs, send packs to the DMs, to emails. Not unknowingly, but like anytime there was an opportunity to send something, I would I'd be on top of that.
It kind of added fuel to your fire once you got that first placement. You're like, oh wait, no, like I am doing this right. It's a confirmation of my time and my effort.
Exactly. It's like I'm not doing this for nothing. Like something that I made in my studio got placed. Like I can do it again. So I'm gonna do it again. Yeah.
How did the Kanye West placement kind of come about?
The Kanye thing happened because of me connecting with Boogs the Beast. So Boogs is if you don't know who Boogs is and you're a sample maker, then what are you doing? You know, like you gotta know who Boogs is. So I sent him a pack because my guy MTK Crabtree Music Library had told me you should send stuff to Boogs, and I had no idea who Boogs was, and I said, who is this guy? And so I just reach out to him and send him some stuff. So I did, and that kind of started the whole conversation between me and him of like, if you got more shit, send it my way. So I kept sending. One of the packs ended up having the sample that was used by Kanye. He told me to hold it. And this was a very young version of myself and not really aware that I was capable of getting a Kanye placement. So when he told me to hold it for Ye, it was hard for me to process that. It was hard for me to believe that, because it's like, you want me to hold something for Kanye West? Oh shit, okay.
That's a huge opportunity.
So I held it. But I didn't get my hopes up too high, because that's aiming for the stars there, you know? But I still held it, and then sure enough, he called me to confirm that it was on Jesus is King, or he had called to confirm me right before I left to LA for a project, that, you know, there's a good chance that this is gonna get on Jesus is King, just letting you know. I said, okay, let's see what happens. I was in LA for 2 weeks to help an artist finish his album, and on that last week is when Kanye had posted a video of himself at one of the listening parties playing the song for a group of people.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I was in LA on my phone and it happened. I was like, oh my God, like if this doesn't confirm it, I don't know what is. Like it was crazy to experience that.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, like the energy was crazy because it was my first time in LA. I was surrounded by music people, and I'm the only guy in the room with a Kanye placement when no one really knew who my name was. I was like pretty much the new guy there, and it's like that fast. It happened that fast. Like it was crazy.
And that just goes to show, you know, like when you are making samples, like just as important as creating a great product is making great connections is
Absolutely.
The other half of that.
Yeah, and then also too is like maintaining those relationships and not letting it get to a point where it's like you're only reaching out to them for the placement opportunities.
Yes.
Because I strongly believe like you got to be genuinely, like you have to like these people. You know, you have to be cool with these people. You have to like see them as humans before rather than just like these doors that lead to opportunities and placements, because they can see right through that shit. You know?
Yes.
I mean, you see it on Twitter all the time when it's like they're complaining about like people hitting me up just to send samples, or like I don't know what they're saying, but they're like, I don't know, they're just like, they can see right through it. You know, like it has to be genuine. Like you have to, yeah.
It comes off like a transaction versus you valuing that human and their creative input.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's like I kind of cringe at any. Like I'm guilty of reaching out to big producers, at least early on, for them to listen to my stuff, you know? And even now, like I can't, I don't know, I just cringe at that thought of me forcing my music onto someone, you know?
Yes.
Because it's like, you don't know what they're going through that day. You don't know, you might be sending your music at the worst fucking time. Like their dog just died and there's a DM saying, yo, what, like we're trying to work on something. Like no, like it's got to be, I don't know, I feel like there's a time and place. So I found the best results come when it's organic and natural, and they stumble upon your work and they genuinely like your stuff and they reach out to you. And I found,
those are the best.
Yes, and then the only way that's going to happen is by you putting yourself out there and not necessarily forcing yourself in the DMs, but you have a public Instagram page. That is the stage. That's your platform. Use it, you know?
That's how I found everybody. I mean, that's how I found you. That's how I got inundated into the whole community was through Instagram and then seeing people's posts and then going to Drum Broker and then coming back. And it was,
Yeah.
the personal branding and the strength of the work is more important, or not important, but it's more valuable than just searching solely for placements.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like even like with the whole boost things too, like when I had reached out to him, he was already aware of who I was, and that blew my mind. I can go back to the DM, and he had said something like, "Yeah, bro, I know who you are." And hearing him say that, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like what I've been doing has been working, because at least this guy who is doing amazing things is aware of the work that I'm doing. So that already is a step in the door. It's like it's not just a cold call, you
No,
know. So I try to practice that, because I'll post my music, and in the back of my mind, I'm sharing it because I want to share my music. But at the end of the day, it's also about like I want these samples to get placed. You know, I want my pack to sell. I want to get this working. So, but I'm gonna do it my way, and it's just sharing my work. And if they hear it, they like it, then it's a go. You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
What are your future plans for yourself and the Hijo de Ramon Music Library brand?
Just continuing to release quality samples, growing the brand, hopefully bringing new composers. I've been trying to work on bringing new composers for the past year. But if I'm gonna do it, I want to find the right people. Ideally, guys that haven't released packs yet, or are fairly new to the community. And they have to be good.
Of course. It's got to align with the brand.
Exactly. I'm not saying like, oh, you have to be amazing, but it's just, you have to make good stuff, because, I want my library to be known for putting out quality stuff. So I'm just trying to find talent out there that can fill those slots.
Yeah. And you have to have a solid connection with that person too. It can't just be
Yeah.
a transactional thing.
Exactly. Being able to be like on like a friendship level with the guys that I bring in would be ideal. You know what I mean? Just bring genuinely kind, creative people that are ready to work. So,
Is there a particular sound you're looking for when you're looking for new sample makers to align with the brand?
so when I put a call out for guys to send stuff, they were sending me stuff that sounded like me. A lot of them sounded like stuff that I would release, which is dope. It's like, damn, this is dope. It sounds like me. But I'm looking for stuff that sounds like them, but somehow still fits the brand. Just something that sounds like the composer that sent me. I want it to sound like their own unique sound, but still kind of like tap into like the nostalgia a little bit of like the classic samples that we were looking for when we were like digging through records or going through YouTube. Like I want it to sound old but new, but still sound like their own sound. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I mean, there's a famous Miles Davis quote that he says, "It takes a long time to sound like yourself."
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's beautiful that you're keeping the door open though for opportunities for people and you're willing to let people in and like try and grow the brand. I think that's really valuable in the community, because I feel like in the sample maker community, that's something that I've seen that really resonates with me, is how it feels very open-hearted. Everybody's willing to work with each other and they want to know like, oh, what's this person doing for their sound, or how did they make that synth sound or that preset? And it's very communal, and I love that.
Same here.
All right. Well, we'll move on to my next section. It's called For the Nerds. This is kind of a little bit more of the technical side of stuff that we get into on the daily basis.
Okay.
What are some of your most regularly used plugins, whether that's EQ and effects or, tape emulation, those kind of things?
If you're familiar with my breakdowns, I always use reels. I throw reels on pretty much anything Rhodes, piano to a certain degree. I'll make it less wet, but it's in there. Reels, I love anything tape emulation. I use Valhalla Room on all my synths. I love the way that it makes a sound like it's literally in the room. You can put it in a different place in the room. Like I love that plugin. Let's see, for instruments, Keyscape. Keyscape is great. Lately, I've been stacking Keyscape on top of my other piano stack that I use in Contact. I use two libraries and then I stack Keyscape on top of that
That's
because
amazing.
it has certain characteristics that I like. So it's a lot of EQ and like leveling, but I'll have for one piano sound, it'll be like three different pianos.
That's good to know. I mean, that's like some secret information that I wouldn't have known. So,
Yeah, yeah. So there's like different formulas. I mean, I think I've given away my piano chain before, but I I encourage people to experiment because there's so many different piano plugins out there, and you can have one piano plugin that has a really bright sound, and then another piano library that's very like kind of like more mid, low. The bright's not all there, but if you put them together, it's like they kind of fill in the blanks for each other,
yeah,
and you got like this powerful sound,
100%. I know one thing that I've been trying to experiment with more is like definitely layering two different sounds, whether that's like a piano and a synth, maybe playing the same voicings and everything, or they
Yep.
have the same MIDI, but it creates
Yep.
like a texture that is this new sound.
Yep. Yep. So layering is key, and it's infinite. Like you can layer anything to anything and just play with like the levels, or it's endless. It's endless.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was really cool was I had gone out and I had recorded a bunch of like just kind of like Foley type sounds on my phone, just
Yeah.
using my like,
Field
built-in
recorder.
microphone. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was just recording a bunch of stuff and I had sent it to a sample maker, and what he did was really cool was he had made like a piano progression, but he had chopped up like kind of like the Foley sounds in rhythm with the progression. So it almost made it sound like when he hit the chord, like I think the sound was like when you shake, yeah, when you shake like a spray paint can.
Yeah.
It was something like it was kind of like that sound. So when he hit the chord, it
Oh,
made
that's
this like,
crazy.
and it was wild. I was like, he's layering texture and music.
That's what I was saying. It's endless. Like it's all pretty much on how creative you can be. It's you can do anything. It's crazy. I need to try that though.
Yeah, it's just, that's why I like sharing the information, is just always opening somebody's mind to a new way of doing something, or maybe something they haven't thought of that gets them excited to go create something new.
Right. Right.
What are your most regularly used instruments and pieces of gear you have?
I feel like every composition I have uses my Korg SV2, which is like my digital piano. I love the piano sounds in it, the Rhodes sounds, and I use it as a MIDI keyboard. So I use this on everything. And then the next would probably be my Rhodes. I try to throw Rhodes in there as much as possible. Even if it doesn't really call for it, I'll still add it in somehow.
I feel like the Rhodes is a very versatile instrument because like even dry, it has like a very like ethereal sound. But then
Yeah.
really when you start putting like effects on it, it can just get crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you can get bass sounds out of it with the bass keys. Uh, you can get some bell sounds because like the higher keys are pretty much like they sound like bells.
Yep.
So yeah, and then like even playing your chords with the Rhodes and then pitching it up, and I can only get the sound that I'm looking for with the real Rhodes. I tried doing it with plugins and it doesn't hit the same.
Yeah.
But with the real Rhodes, like you can get like the wobble and like the way the tines are hit, and it's like imperfect, but perfect at the same time.
Yeah,
It's
you
weird.
you got to make
But
something
yeah,
dirty to make it beautiful sometimes.
exactly, exactly.
That's amazing. What are some of your favorite effects to use to transform or reshape a sound?
Uh, I would have to say, I guess when it comes to transforming, it's probably pitch. Anything that allows me to mess with the pitch. Obviously, there's plugins out there that you can mess with, like stereo sound with delays, reverbs. There's a lot of different tools, and I use them. But I love taking something and either making it sound really high or like really low, and then using that to layer stuff. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing to do is to mess with the pitch.
I love that. And you don't feel like, because I know some people shy away from using like pitch shifting plugins because of the artifacts or something, but like you're saying, it kind of does add a good character if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, like some of the artifacts and stuff, like I don't let that bother me, because I feel like it kind of adds to like the weirdness of a sound too, and
Yeah,
in like the composition, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, when you solo stuff out, it's like that sounds kind of weird, but then when in context and you hear it inside the sample, then that's when it makes sense, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are some of the most underrated or slept on plugins in your opinion?
Ooh, underrated slept on plugins. Uh, Slept on plugins, man. I don't even know to be honest. Maybe I don't know if they're slept on, but I don't see a lot of people using them. Like those crazy string libraries that
Yeah.
yeah,
I actually just got into them because I was always afraid of them because it's like they're huge.
Dude, gigantic file sizes.
Yeah, and it takes up a lot of CPU and stuff. But I found a workflow that works where, I'm using Spitfire, the Abbey Road 2 strings. I actually just got into that, and they sound incredible. But it's impossible to use like in a real live session with everything moving, all the different plugins, because it takes up a lot of CPU. So what I do is I work on the sample and then I bounce that, open up a new session, and I just have that two track of just the sample composition exported, and then I open up the strings. I play what I want to play. I bounce that, and I bring it back into the original session. So that way
that's amazing.
I don't have to deal with the heavy CPU craziness.
Yeah, and it's like you're getting yourself familiar with this new territory you're diving into, and you're finding a way
Yep.
to like integrate it into the sound and pushing yourself forward again, like we were talking about.
I treat the plugin like as if I had like a real session player in the room. Like I have to like leave my original session and go into a new session, and like it's just me and the strings, you know. And then I
Yeah,
play out what I want to play, and then I pay them for their time, meaning I export, I bring it back to
yep,
my original session, and yeah, it's that's pretty much. And then there is no MIDI to like mess around with. It's whatever is printed is what I'm working with.
Yeah. That's really valuable too because it kind of makes you commit to the idea and
Yep.
I just think that's a really valuable way to create.
Yep.
What is some secret sauce that you wish you had known earlier on when you started out making music?
Um, Secret sauce to see an idea
that
all the
could
way
be.
through.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that could be, like voicing on the piano or like, learning to compose, but you said seeing an
Oh,
idea the way all the way through?
yeah, yeah. So I got two of them. So seeing an idea all the way through, meaning that if you have an idea that you're working on and it's not quite hitting, to give it more time. To not give up on it, you know, because I've had ideas where it's like, this ain't really working, but then I spend a little bit more time and it actually ends up being something dope, you know. So there's that. And then the other one is uh it's crazy because when you have a certain key that you like to play in, meaning that I love to write in what was it in I think in E flat minor. I love just playing and jamming in that because I know all the different like chords. I know how to move around really nice.
Yep.
So I'll record something, and all I do is just bring it down to a different key, or a different thing, and then it's in a whole different new key. It's a whole new thing, you know. Whereas before, I would
Definitely.
force myself to kind of learn to play in that key, but my hands aren't used to moving around. So that was like a little like hack, I guess, when it comes to like playing and recording in different keys. Is just play in something that you're comfortable in, and then just shift it up and down toward
Yeah,
like the new key. Yeah.
I think that's really smart. I mean, even when I'm working in Ableton, there's a plugin or like there's a native plugin called Pitch, and you could put it, but it's not like an audio pitch, it's a MIDI pitch shifting plugin.
Oh,
plugins.
So you
nice.
can put it on like an instance of Keyscape or something, transpose it down, three steps or whatever, and you could still play in the key you're familiar in, but you could hear it coming out in that other key.
See, that's just another reason why Ableton is probably the best. Like, DAW out. Like, I need that.
Ableton, I've been using since 2011, and it is one of those things that it's the most user friendly like DAW I've ever used. I started out on FL and I tried to like get into it, but at the time when I started it, there wasn't really any good tutorials out there, and I didn't really know like how to use it, and it made me not want to create because it was so difficult to like learn in the beginning.
too technical. You have to like, yeah, there's too much thinking going on, not enough like flowing.
Yeah, and so once I got into Ableton, it was like everything was really easy. The workflow was great, and I've just been married to the plugin or the DAW ever since.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. I mean, me, I'm stuck in FL11. I don't know what version of FL is out right now, but I'm stuck in 11. Like, I don't want to upgrade.
I think they're at like 20 or something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, but I mean, I'm in Ableton Live. I think I'm in 10 or something, but they're on like 12 now or something. So
There you go.
it's all right. We're creatures of habit.
Yeah, for real, for real. Once I like something, I'm stuck there unless I have another reason to move.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's like you're already creating great stuff, so you don't necessarily feel the need to like switch into something else.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
All right, we'll move on to my final five. This is where we'll kind of wind down the interview, make things end on a good note. These can be one sentence or one word answers. They don't have to be very long if you don't want them to.
Got it.
What is something you wish more people did in their music?
Something I wish. Man. Damn, that's a good one. I think I would want to hear more experimental stuff. I would want to hear people taking the formulas that we're using now and taking it to like a new world. Fusing more sounds together and just being overall more experimental.
Yeah, taking risks.
Taking risks. There you go.
Definitely. Where do you see music going in the next 5 years?
To amazing places. I mean, just look at like the roster of guys that are coming up right now that are creating. I am scared, bro. There's a lot of amazing talent coming up.
And they're really pushing themselves.
Oh my God, yes. It's
Like I've been
it's really exciting because it's like I kind of saw myself in like the ideal position of like I came up with the beginning of YouTube and I had like my guys that I was looking up to on YouTube for tutorials and I felt like I had like a decent road to follow, but now the guys that are coming up now are following the paths that we built.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, like take me for example, I gave him there's a whole YouTube channel that I have of Sauce and along with a bunch of other ones that are out there, you know. The resources are unlimited right now. It's crazy. So people that are coming up right now just starting out, they have all the tools that they need to be successful.
Yeah, I would agree. And I love that people are now, they're even moving beyond, I feel like samples, it seemed like for a while could be, loops. And then there was kind of sections that dropped out of each loop. But now I'm noticing everybody's moving into these like full song type compositions. Like people are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's like I love loops. I feel like a lot of like hit songs are just loops. But I feel like when it comes to guys that are making like compositions, that's a whole nother league right there, man. Like guys that are able to pull that off, because they're not just sample composers. They're musicians. They're fucking producers. You know what I mean? Like those guys are the real deal. When they can take an idea and they have the different like sections where it breaks off, and it's not just muting tracks. It's literally a whole new little section with a whole new vibe, but it still fits into one sample, right? Or one piece of music.
Yeah, it almost feels like there's literally like a verse section and then they switch maybe to a major key in a chorus section. And then there's even like a bridge, which is in a completely different key. And then an outro, like how music really used to be.
Yep.
And I love that.
And I love that.
Yeah, there's like, and I love that stuff, man, because it's like, because it really pushes me to want to be better too. Because I feel like I'm happy with where I am right now, but I have so much more yet to learn. And I like to see myself as just I'm on another step, and I have way more things or way more coins that I have to collect.
Yeah.
You know. So being able to hear stuff like that, like it really inspires me, especially coming from like a sample person. It's not just me listening to like an already released song, because I feel like when I hear an original piece of music that's already released, that's like 30 years old, it's like, okay, yeah, this is amazing. Of course it sounds amazing. Like it's an old song, it's whatever, but When I hear like a crazy piece of music that's released on a sample pack, it's like, holy shit, someone made this in their bedroom, bro.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, okay. I need to step it up. So
Definitely.
yeah.
I feel like that's where we're headed, is seeing people like, it's going to be, I mean, I feel like you're even going to see people basically releasing songs with vocals and lyrics that is as a sample pack.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're pretty much there already, man. Like if you hear a lot of these packs, like they're just missing the drums.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
What would you say is the best way for a sample maker to improve their samples?
By creating samples. Make bad samples. Make them, get them out your system. I feel like just it's all about numbers. Like you got to keep cranking them out.
Definitely.
My first samples were not really even samples. There were beats. There were bad beats that I just took the drums out of. And eventually I had to release those to show myself like, okay, this is my starting point. I have to sound better than this. Okay, release the next one. I gotta sound better than that. So it's a progression. My 19th has to sound better than my 18th release. So it's just growth.
I love that. That's definitely a valuable sentiment.
Yeah.
All right. What is the worst advice you've ever received?
Shit. Let's see. Make your sample pack royalty free.
Yeah, definitely.
So I've done royalty free, but I don't think I'll ever do a sample pack with compositions or loops that are royalty free. I've done one shots because one shots are just, they're just like the single sounds. But yeah, I've had people tell me like put out a royalty free pack because, it means more money. But I can't see myself doing that because it would burn too much to see one of my royalty free loops or compositions even get used on this crazy record, and can't collect shit.
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost in a way like you're not trying to, but it almost seems like you're like undervaluing yourself at that point if you're just doing royalty free stuff.
Yep. So yeah, I don't think I would ever do a royalty free, like a proper composition pack to make it royalty free. Never.
I agree. What is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice. It's crazy because I've received a lot of amazing advice throughout my journey of working for myself and doing music. So it's really hard to just pick one.
It doesn't have to be just
But-
one.
Doesn't
You can
have to be
maybe
just
give us
one.
a
You can
couple.
maybe
What are
give
some of
us
the
a
best
couple.
advices
Some of
you
the
ever
best
received?
advice you've ever received.
Let's see. This is a tough one, man. I think if I can just pick one, I think the advice that I received was to just allow myself and to not be so hard on myself when it came down to needing a break. Because I would even to this day, I find it very difficult for me to step away from creating because I feel like I'm falling behind or I'm not doing enough. So just being able to like take a break and genuinely be in break mode, completely
Yes.
unplug and to really be in the moment of not working. You're not having to create shit, but just allow yourself to be yourself, doing something completely different, to be
I
able to
agree.
unplug. Yeah. Like I felt like that is so beneficial because I always come back refreshed, but it's just, I always put up a fight because once I clock back in, it's hard for me to clock back out.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely very valuable advice. I know for me, like my kind of way of breaking my musical focus, like the thing I love outside of music is I love going to like car meets. I like going to Cars and Coffee and seeing like crazy, all these vintage Porsches. I get to see like exotic cars. I'll see Japanese like 90s cars that are amazing. And I grew up with my dad's in the car industry. So for me, it's always been something that it's like an art medium. It's like technical work. It's almost similar to music in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really like lets me take a break and unwind and come back inspired. So
Yeah.
So-
It's and you know what? I feel like I had a group of friends that I would hang out with. We would go to like this bar and we just hang out and grab beers and we just chop it up. And this was pre-pandemic, so we would link up. Like it would be like every Thursday or Wednesday. We just link up, hang out, talk, and I would come back to my studio and I would feel so recharged and like so inspired because the conversations that we were having were always so like, yo, we got this. Like, what are you working on? Like, yeah, just don't give up. It was always so like we would really push each other.
Yeah.
But then pandemic happened. We stopped doing that, and it sucked. Because I lost that ability to connect with my boys and to just unplug and relax. And be in a different environment. So yeah, I think like even now with like the pandemic, since we're forced to kind of be at home. I kind of got sick of being in the studio. So when it came down to create, it's just like, oh, like I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that still lingering now. Obviously, it's a lot better. But yeah, just being able to find another outlet, another thing that genuinely makes you happy. So that way you can come back to your studio and it's like you haven't seen your studio in forever, so you miss it,
Yeah.
And yeah.
No, I agree. I have a core group of friends. I have like 3 or 4 friends that are like brothers to me that we really like it. I don't just make samples. It's like I make music with them, and we're always trying to push ourselves to do something different. And my friends that I'm around are like the people who've given me more value in my own life than even on my own journey. I have a friend who he's always pursuing like alignment in the body. He's always seeing what he can take away to optimize himself because he's trying to be like the Tom Brady of the music world.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the reason I went vegan. He's the reason I cut out my alcohol and weed and caffeine and just all these healthy habits. And I feel like definitely surrounding yourself with people who give you good advice and who value themselves are going to make you value yourself even more.
100%. Yep. That's true. I feel like having like just like that positive circle of people that push you in the right direction, it makes a huge difference because I try to like maintain that now even. Granted, it's all through Instagram and through online because I'm in Milwaukee and a lot of guys that I work with and that I look up to are in different cities.
Mm-hmm.
But, maintaining those relationships to people that I look up to and that I admire, it's really important because you're not physically surrounding yourself with those people, but in a way you kind of are,
Yeah. You're putting their personalities and their take on life around you, and it's helping you navigate your own way through life.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for taking time with me today, Came. I hope to talk to you again soon. Maybe we'll check in a year from now, see where the library's at and how everything's going for you, man.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you again for the opportunity, bro. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I'll hit pause here and we'll call it a day on the podcast.